I am obviously a strong proponent, based off my opening rant, of Spectre just being the most insufferable. Like I said, it's the only Bond movie I actively hate.
Right.
Almost every episode, it's like, you just hate this, you just hate that. No, I'm being critical of it.
I enjoy, like, as much as you and I have had arguments over The Man with the Golden Gun, which I still to this day don't think it deserves where it's at. Till this day.
Because you're a f***ing blasphemer. You're a heretic when it comes to the sacred list.
Right, sure. Yes, anyway. I will say, though, I still enjoy watching that movie. I don't hate watching it, because it's a James Bond movie. If it's on, I'll watch it. It's fun. I'll watch it.
That's such a big boy thing for you to say.
Shut the f*** up.
Because even...
You're such a... Did I ever tell you? You know what? You're such a... Okay?
Call me C. Call me C. And
you are a
C works for me, because that happens to be the first letter of my name. So when you call me C, you're like...
What does the C in Chucky Rant stand for? Well, you know.
So
that's what that means.
I noticed something about the top 10 after we threw Skyfall in there, which is that if you take the top 10 and you pair them off, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We've had all these arguments about each of these where they pair off nicely, where the more Bond, quote, the more Bond movie ends up being the superior film. So GoldenEye versus Casino Royale. GoldenEye wins. The more Bond movie. Goldfinger versus From Russia with Love. Goldfinger is the more Bond movie. Not just the spy elements, but it's the super spy elements. The Bond super spy elements that made Goldfinger above From Russia with Love. License to Kill versus Skyfall. We gave it to Skyfall. It's just more of a Bond-esque movie in a classy sense. The Spy Who Loved Me versus Man with the Golden Gun. We gave it to The Spy Who Loved Me. Dr. No versus The World's Not Enough. We gave it to Dr. No. Just a coincidence, but just a pattern that I noticed.
Real talk. Going into this conversation, going into the octagon that I knew this conversation was going to go, initially, I am in agreement with the general prospect of this movie being a very low tier list movie for many reasons. But my personal thoughts on the movie as rewatching it for the first time in a long time, because it's not one of my favorites. I don't go back and be like, oh, I really want to watch Spectre because... And something I had said about Casino and Quantum, again, this movie kind of does do a lot of f***ery where you kind of, it's like you think the movie's going to do this thing that I think fans would enjoy, that you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. They're tying everything together. They're keeping the Craig universe kind of its own thing. I kind of like that aspect of this movie. I think it's a good movie for the first half. It's a good movie, the first half. Not a great movie.
The first 2 courses of a meal.
First half of the movie, the first half of this movie, and it's if you go back and watch, like the first half of the movie up until about around the time, I'm not going to say it's just a specific like timestamp moment, but around the time that they go to the clinic, that's when the movie starts to nosedive.
Yep.
And there's one scene in particular for me that nosedives the whole movie, but we can talk about that in a bit. But my initial like high-low for the ranking, though, or initially my thinking was The Living Daylights. I think it's somewhere at the Living Daylights is at the highest, The Living Daylights, and only because The Living Daylights for me is a movie that
above Living Daylights,
maybe below. Say below okay. Living Daylights, and only because I think The Living Daylights is a movie that, at its worst, or the things that I think we complained about the most, is that it just doesn't make you care enough for the outcome of the film. It's like the stakes are not high enough for you to give a shit. So why should I give a shit? And then you just kind of left there like, what did I watch? Like, why did I care? Like, that Timothy Dalton guy was great, but like, I don't know about the movie. We've
said repeatedly that The Living Daylights suffers from both a lack of logic and emotion. It's got that convoluted Mikey G. Wiz script coupled with, why should I care? So the only reason you should care is Timmy D.
Yeah, they don't give you a reason to care. Okay, now going down the list, because I know you're very adamant about it being at the very bottom of the list.
Yes, I am.
I think Live and Let Die, even for its goofiness, I still think it's a better movie. I enjoy Live and Let. I think the music, again, like that just elevates the movie instantly, is the music for that movie. But I do like I like the uniqueness of that movie. I like all the henchmen of that movie. I like the Bond girl a lot more in that movie. There's a lot more I think I like about Live and Let Die. So that's where I'll go. Yeah, I think Spectre is below Live and Let Die. Then we get to Moonraker. And that's where I could see like Moonraker, Diamonds, Die Another Day, You Only Live Twice. That's like more in the realm where I think it should live. Somewhere in that realm. Okay. I guess the things that are keeping me from saying this movie's absolute shit and it should go to the bottom, and it's bullshit reasons that you're gonna go, F you, McCurdy. I think, at least at the very end of the day, I think the execution
know what M
of this
stands for, McCurdy? Moronic.
It should just be moron, but whatever.
Yeah, but I want to bring back into it because it's such a great word.
I like saying that word. It's fun. I think there is a part of me that's like, yeah, the execution of this movie does excel. And I know you were saying the movie's not enjoyable, and I did find myself enjoying a good amount of this movie after rewatch, and I'm like, actually, I kind of do enjoy it a little bit, but I think we may come to an agreement, because I think if we talk about it more, you could persuade me to just say I think this is the bottom, because that's
why is that?
Okay, so I was doing my own soul searching on this movie. I was walking through the fields of grass and contemplating and really inheriting my inner Chucky rants and just questioning everything about life. And I came to some conclusions about this movie that kind of pissed me off. Kind of made me mad.
Good.
That turned me into a Chucky rants.
Excellent. Just to clarify your position real quick, though, you're saying below Live and Let Die.
Like, I could see it being above Die Another Day.
My proposition, yes, the very fucking bottom. You Only Live Twice may be underwhelming, despite having ninjas and helicopter battles, all this ridiculously awesome stuff.
Right.
But still underwhelming at the end of the day, and something that nobody really cared about. But it's at least a complete Bond adventure. Old school Bond adventure, but still a complete Bond adventure. Sure. I find myself laughing at the pitifully adorable You Only Live Twice, but frothing at the mouth over the inexcusably bad Spectre. A movie made 40, 50 years later. This movie feels like they got the rights to Thunderball and pumped out a first draft in a weekend and went straight into production. The movie spends most of its time trying to justify its own existence rather than telling a worthwhile story with a comprehensive plot. To that end, it doesn't matter how long it's good before it goes to complete shit. Every Bond movie has some good moments. That's why we always say, we don't hate Bond, we love Bond. Yeah. Die Another Day is stupid and ridiculous, but fun, and has a really entertaining bad guy. I mean, the whole thing about that was that the movie begins one way and ends another, so it's kind of inconsistent.
It does, and I agree. I would agree with you on that, because I do think about this movie, and even when I first saw the movie, I think this movie kind of has just a dark and dreary feel, and there's not a lot of levity. There's just that's the best word I would say, is not just humor or goofiness. It's just there is small moments of levity.
It does start to show
it goes
that
a little too dark.
No, it's starting to get goofy.
It's getting goofy.
This is the first Craig movie that is starting to get goofy. So anyway, Diamonds Are Forever is, and I'm working my way up the list, Diamonds Are Forever is a hilarious comedy that knows exactly what it is and plays to that. Moonraker is Moonraker. Need I say more? So on and so forth. The flip side of that is Skyfall and Golden Gun. Full of faults. Both movies full of faults, but the story and its themes and bad guy are awesome enough to elevate them above the simple perfection of Dr. No or whatever else, right? The stuff that makes Skyfall great overwhelms the stuff that makes it bad. So Spectre has little to care about, and a crap bad guy, and a forced romance, and a loose plot with vague stakes, and is the only movie worthy of actual hatred, because the core of its supposed story is just too dumb, the whole they're brothers thing, and not set up whatsoever. I don't like watching this movie. It's like watching the end of Game of Thrones, or watching Game of Thrones in general. If the ending is the worst part, it ruins everything that came before it, so there's no point in ever watching it again. It's like if Splash Mountain ended not with a splash through water, but straight into the Disneyland sewer system. It doesn't matter if you were having a good time before being covered in shit. and you'd certainly never want to ride it again. That's
Right.
the analogy. Is like, oh my God, we're having fun. And then it's so bad in the end that it doesn't matter if you had fun for the first hour, hour and a half, even the first 2 hours. It doesn't matter. It's such a bad ending that everything that came before it is suddenly wiped out.
What was it in the movie? What was it, the movie adaptation when he's talking to Robert McKee? And Robert McKee's like, well, what advice can you give me? And he's like, dude, just make a good ending. Just like, no one's going to give a shit about if this didn't work or this. If the ending works, people will like your movie regardless. And
Yes.
I will say you're not wrong in that, because when I'm assessing the other films in my head, even the ones I don't like as much as you do, they do have fun endings. There's just a funness about them that I kind of enjoy. And this one doesn't have that.
As much as I talked so much shit about Skyfall last episode, but I did say it ends on a high note.
It's bringing it back. We're bringing it back to the old school.
That's why sometimes certain movies are difficult to contend with, and Skyfall's one of them. That train sequence is so bad, but at least it doesn't end that way. At least the final sequence isn't the train sequence. You can just get up and go take a piss during the train sequence if you're like me and you hate it.
Going somewhere?
I'm gonna take a piss.
I think what you're saying is that the movie does a really great job of supporting its themes, regardless of how out of left field going to Skyfall may seem to some people. Forget the plot for a second. The movie's trying to build this story.
Yeah.
And that story is compelling because we care about those characters. We care about M. We think Silva's a really good villain. We care about Bond. So you're building all this up, and it's all about
Sometimes the old ways are the best.
old ways are best. That's the theme of the whole movie. And you're building up to that. So then when you get to the end of the movie, M dying, like that's all, it's a great payoff. The whole thing pays off really great, right?
You've at least forgotten about the train sequence by then.
Right. That stuff still works.